Mm.
Go and lie down.
Okay, everyone, the time is 7:31, so I think we'll look at making a start, if that's right with you, Linda.
Yeah, that's okay.
All right.
Yeah, my dog's just banged his head on the table.
Oh dear. Well, if you need a second to sort him out, that's okay.
Right, now I'm ready.
No, okay, in which case, welcome everyone to the November meeting of the Wombourne Scientific Society, coming to you from lockdown here in Chester today, not in Wombourne at all. It's been a bizarre month, hasn't it, since we all last spoke, but I hope that we're all well. There's a few of us in here in Zoom, and hello to everyone watching on YouTube this evening, though you're about 20 seconds in the past. I hope everyone's doing lovely. So we're in for a treat this evening to take our minds off of the pandemic around us. We're going to have an absolute whale of a time with our very own Linda Gowtry. Linda's a retired science teacher and naturalist with a passion for living things and conservation of the natural world. Whale's been one of the things that I think she's probably most interested in if she's going to enchant us with tales of them this evening. So thank you very much, Linda. It's a pleasure to have you talking, and I'll hand over to you now.
Okay, thank you. Well, I want to talk about this group of living things. They're an amazing group of living things. They are intelligent. They teach, which is amazing. They learn. Yeah, they can be aggressive to each other, hardly ever aggressive to humans at this time anyway. But they are absolutely incredible. They are, as I say, they're intelligent, they're compassionate. So I want to just tell you a little bit about them. It all really started, I'm actually interested in all living things. And it started with my friend, who's the other person in the more sensible hat in the picture on the screen. She went to Vancouver and went whale watching, but unfortunately she didn't see any. So when she came back, she sort of mentioned it to me, and I did a bit of research and I found some places for us to go, or one place in particular to begin with. But first of all, let me just talk a little bit about this amazing group of living things. Okay, so what is a whale? Cetaceans are the group of organisms that whales belong to, and they're aquatic mammals, totally adapted to living in the water. There are around about 89 living species. When you actually look in the books, even just about 10 or 15 years ago, there were actually down to be something like about 85 living species. But they've since found that some of the whales they found out there are separate species. And they're divided into two groups. The Odontoceti, which are the toothed whales. There's about 70 of these, and these include the dolphins, the porpoises, things like the beluga whale, the narwhal, the sperm whale, and the beaked whales. Okay, so this is the bigger group. And the second group is the Mystaceti. I'm sure that's how you pronounce it, so that's how I'm going to say it. And these are the baleen whales, and these are the filter feeders. These are the biggies, and there's about 15 of them, and these consist of things like the blue whale, the right whale, bowhead whale, and the grey whale. So two groups, and basically it's the different feeding methods, the filter feeders and the toothed whales. Okay, a bit of evolution about them. Ancestors at 53 to 45 million years ago, they actually diverged from the group of living things. I don't know about you, but that sort of time scale, it's so long ago, it's a bit mind-blowing. But they're, if you like, the closest relatives are things like the hippopotamuses and cows and pigs. And they started off by being semi-aquatic, and then gradually evolution over the millions of years, we ended up with fully adapted animals to the oceanic life. Baleen whales split from the toothed whales about 34 million years ago. So they've been around on the planet for a very long time. And this slide just shows a little bit about some of the ones in the past. And I'm not going to make an attempt to pronounce some of those, except perhaps the Doryudon, not that one at the bottom, almost looking whale-like compared to the others. So tiny bit about the evolution. But nowadays, we've got, as I say, about the 89 different species. The smallest is the Hector's dolphin. And this is about 1 metre long. Apologies, my dog is very much restless tonight. One of them anyway, he's wandering around. He'll probably bring a squeaky toy in a minute, so apologies if there's strange noises in the background. So the smallest is the Hector's dolphin, which you can see is a little bit smaller than a human, all the way up to the blue whale, which is the largest living thing that's ever lived on this planet, much larger than the biggest dinosaurs, even the biggest ones they're finding at the moment. The blue whale, 30 meters, give or take, near enough 100 feet, give or take a little bit. 173 tons, huge animal, of which you only ever really see a tiny bit of it unless it leaks out the water. Okay, so I'll tell you a little bit about some of them first of all. I think this one, I started with the humpback whale because I think this is one of my favourites. It's often called the clown of the sea as well, because it's the one that seems to interact the most, jumping out and spy hopping and flipping its tail and flippers. And we've seen all that sort of wonderful behaviour. These grow to be about 14 metres, and you can see the size of it relative to an elephant and relative to a human. Okay, just on that picture. They've got these amazing big flippers. Okay, and if we've been doing this talk actually in a place where we could all see, I've got all the different models, my toys that I've collected, and also I would have had some sort of scale up versions of their tail, how to show you how big these are. But hopefully you can get an idea with that picture of how big they are. They're absolutely amazing creatures. Whaling industry has actually reduced them to about 95% decline. So the whaling industry has taken about 95% of them. Come back to that later. They're really intelligent. They sing, they share, they learn the song, and it's actually been shown that they teach each other songs, and they've got regional dialects. They're quite amazing. The plates, the baleen plates, filter out all the seawater. They take gulps of amounts. They eat fish, lots of different types of fish. And these are taken in big, huge gulps, as you'll see later on. They're amazing. Their lung capacity, just like most of the cetaceans, are extremely efficient. They can exchange about 95% of the air in their lungs with every breath. The nostrils are on the top of the head, which of course is a great adaptation to living underwater. They can come to the surface, and they only need to show a tiny bit of themselves at the surface in order to breathe. People think that the spout of seawater, the spout of water that you see coming up, is actually water from the lungs. It's not. It's blown. It's a tiny bit of water that's just above them in the sea, and that blows all the water upwards. Incidentally, 95% efficiency for exchange, 90%, sorry, whereas humans, it's only about 10 or 15%. So they're extremely well adapted to living under the water. Okay. They're often called the winged whale because of the size of the flippers. And these flippers underneath are quite white and startling. And so they actually use that as a way of startling their fish so that they can get more of them into their mouth. They can also use them to hit and stun the fish. And they also hit each other when they're sort of fighting for their females. Okay. These whales also have the longest migration of any mammal. Every year they go from the cold where they eat to the warmth where they raise their children, where they have the babies and also mate. And that is a huge, if you think about it, it can be almost from the Arctic all the way down to the equator. So it's quite a way they go. And the reason they don't even feed at all when they're down in the warm waters, because there's very little food for them. But it's safer to bring up their offspring. in those waters, because they've got the sort of more shallow basins where their predators, very few predators, but things like killer whales, orcas, can't really get to them. And also, it also means that their warmth, they obviously can survive better because they are very small at that stage, relatively small. So of course they would never survive the cold if they were born up in the Arctic or in the colder areas. Colder areas have a lot more food for them. So although they take in and gulp huge amounts of water and fish, their actual food pipe is only quite small, so they can only swallow certain types, certain size fish. Okay, so in this case as well, the females tend to be bigger than the males. With humpbacks, their flippers have, as you'll see some pictures as well, the flippers have got certain prints on them, and that's used for identification. But I'll say a little bit more when we see some more pictures later on. The blue whale is just absolutely amazing. As you can see, the size of it. It's said that a toddler, a small child, can actually would be able to crawl through its blowhole without any problem. It's said that the heart is the size of a Volkswagen Beetle. The tongue is about the size of an elephant. It's just absolutely a huge living thing. And again, this is a filter feeder and feeds on the smallest of shrimp-like creatures called krill, but they feed hundreds. I did have the numbers written down somewhere, and hopefully I'll come across that. They're really fast. They can travel at 20 knots, which we've discovered is miles, just a little bit longer than, a bit further than the land miles. They're often called the sulfur whale because the bottom underneath of them looks a bit yellow, and this is because of the diatoms, the little living things that live on them, make them look yellow. And really they look grey when they're out of the water, but if you can see them through the water and under the water, they're blue, and that is again because of the bacteria and the diatoms that live on the surface of them. I've put about 3 double-decker buses, as you can see, about the size of them. They're absolutely huge. Gestation of these creatures is about 11 to 12 months, and the newborns are 25 feet long, which is about 7 meters, and weigh about 3 tons. So imagine a newborn, 3 tons. And again, they're extremely efficient at exchanging the air in their lungs. Again, these were almost just, become extinct because of whaling. And there's considering it's such a large animal, there's so little known about them. And unfortunately, because of whaling, they're still very much in trouble. There's a few areas where they actually have recovered, and I'll tell you a little bit about those a bit later on as well. These are also the loudest creatures, although my dog, I think, could probably join in with them. Loudest creatures, and their song can actually travel thousands of miles underneath the water. Again, they're a very solitary creature, but again, we reckon that the song must be to try and attract the attention of other blue whales, but they're not sure. There is a huge amount not known about these creatures at all. In fact, for most of them, a lot of information they know comes from whaling and looking at the animals that have been washed up as well, which is a bit of a shame. The sperm whale is the biggest toothed whale. And I mean, I learned the other day, I didn't realise, but it's only the bottom of their jaw. I don't know whether you can see my little sperm whale here. It's only their bottom jaw that has the teeth. The top part doesn't have teeth at all, but these teeth sort of fit into holes in the top of the jaw. These feed on bigger things, bigger fish. They also feed on squid, and they've also been known to take the giant squid. And we know this because whales have been found with the squid marks, the sucker marks, and really big, huge sucker marks on their bodies. These were, again, hunted a lot, and again, almost to extinction. But you can see again the relative size of these. These are amazing. They've got the biggest tooth of mammals. They go to the deepest. They can dive to 2,000 meters, which is about 6,560 feet. Now, humans couldn't go that deep, and coming back, they'd have to be very careful because they could suffer from decompression. These animals don't suffer from decompression, probably because they don't breathe as they dive. They take a deep breath, and that sort of helps them so they don't get the decompression sickness. They've got the largest brains of most compared to body size. They've got this great big part of their head, which is to do with echolocation. It's filled with a milky white substance called spermaceti. And they actually thought, the early people who hunted and killed these creatures and cut them open, that was an extremely valuable part of the whale because it was very oily, and that's one of the reasons they were taken. They actually thought that because it was white and milky, that it looked a little bit like semen, and so that's why it was called a sperm whale. They actually thought that was to do with reproduction, which of course it isn't. That's why it's called a sperm whale, for all you wondering why it was called that. They have lots of different sounds. Clicks, as I said, used a lot for echolocation, but there's a lot of patterns to this clicks, and they reckon there's a very simple language there. These are very social creatures, and they can be seen in large groups. And they're very much lots of social activity. They breach, they lobtail, they spy hop, and all the sorts of things associated with whales. But they like to be together and sort of touch each other and dance with each other and all sorts. The young are kept together and they're kept into groups as well. But I'll tell you a little bit more as we go through. Okay. The grey whale. This again has been hunted to extinction in the Atlantic, especially in the North Atlantic, but can be found in the Pacific along the California and the American coast down to Baja California. And on that side, they've actually recovered in numbers, which is quite amazing. So these were actually called devilfish by whalers because they actually fought back, which is not surprising if you think about it, because basically they're fighting for their lives. So of course they'd fight back. They were found in coastal waters where the other ones I've mentioned mainly are out into the ocean. These were found in coastal, so they were easier to catch. Just like actually the sperm whales, they came quite close to land as well. Bit of a shame, so these were taken. Incidentally, the right whale, which I haven't seen, so I haven't included in pictures, is called the right whale because it was the right whale to hunt. Because when it's killed, it actually floats, so it makes it easier for the whalers. Most of the others, when they're killed, they sink. That's why they had to develop the harpoon. Grey whales feed on fish in the middle of the sea, or even on the surface, on the bottom of the sea, the benthic organisms. They can take crabs and other things found on the bottom as well. Amazing creatures. And when I talk about where I've seen them, I'll say a little bit more. Some species they've actually found are amongst the longest lived mammals. It's estimated, which is absolutely incredible, that bowhead whales, which are mainly found and stay in the Arctic, they can live for more than 200 years. The reason they think that is because recently a bowhead whale was found with a harpoon stuck in it. And this harpoon was the sort that was used over 100 years ago. So they reckon these animals can actually live for a long time. The other toothed whales as well, things like the orcas, the killer whales, have been known that they can live up to 100 years, however, not in captivity. But again, I'll mention that a bit later. And then you've got the dolphin family. I won't go into as much detail with the dolphin family. There are lots of different sorts. And as I said, all the way from the Hector's dolphin, or the Maui, which is a little bit smaller than a human, all the way up to the biggest of the dolphins, which is the orca or killer whale. Amazing creatures. Not seen a killer whale. So I want to next talk to you about the places where I've actually seen them. I've been lucky enough to see them, and I hope that some of you might want to go out and see them at some stage. And these are the places that I've actually been lucky enough to visit. The first place we investigated was Newfoundland. I did some research and found that they've got resident humpbacks. What we wanted was to go somewhere that could almost guarantee seeing a whale. And when you think of how big the oceans are and how big the waters are, it is not 100% each time that you can actually go out and see them. So we chose places where they actually said, you know, we can almost guarantee it. So we went to Newfoundland. Incredible place. We've been to the Azores a couple of times, right in the middle of the Atlantic. Santa Barbara off the Californian coast, and around Los Angeles and Ventura and that area, amazing place. And then Alaska, which is again just incredible. And then the other place like Boston, on the east coast of America, Scotland, and then finally Baja, California. So let me start with Newfoundland. Don't worry, I haven't got all my pictures. This was really difficult to do, choosing which photographs to choose. And unfortunately, the Newfound ones, the earlier ones, are all stored on CDs, which don't actually work very well anymore. So it was a bit difficult getting some of these pictures back. So there's a warning, any photos stored on CDs, they're not stored forever. But in Newfoundland was our first viewing of the humpback whale. And our first actual viewing was where we drove from the airport, which actually was incredible. You get off the plane in Newfoundland and you can just smell the forest. Nothing to do, you can't smell all the pollution of the airplanes and the usual airport stuff. It was just clean, fresh air. It was beautiful. And we went to a whale watching trip from St. John's, which is the capital of Newfoundland, and we saw humpback whales. They breached, and we saw tails just like this one, and it was just absolutely amazing. So our sort of first day was wonderful. And then we went out to a place called Trinity, drove along. Incidentally, we also saw moose. And we went to Trinity, which is amazing. It was an old whaling station. And from there, we went out in ribs, where basically the whales are bigger than the ribs, bigger than the boats. And we saw lots of humpback whales. But most of the time with these humpback whales, they were feeding. So we didn't see all the other exciting behavior. Although at one point, a quiet, still waters in the boat, we stopped and this whale came up alongside us and soaked us in its smelly fresh fish breath, which was absolutely amazing. We were all absolutely thrilled with that. So that was our first encounter with humpback whales. And as you can see, we also had a lot of other wildlife that we could actually see as well along the way. Amazing place. That's a road in Newfoundland. Now, this was well over 10 years ago, so hopefully some of the roads are a lot better, but it was quite an eye-opener driving in Newfoundland. It was also quite interesting trying to find something to eat, being vegetarian, and they'd never heard of vegetarians before, but that's a different story. Amazing place. There's some caribou seen through the fog, that's why it's not a very good picture. Also some pitcher plants, some insectivorous plants. So it was absolutely amazing place to go to. Next place, I was lucky enough, my brother worked out in just outside Los Angeles for a while. So I did some research and found that off the coast of California, there was a great place for blue whales. Now, I'd said before that blue whales are nearly hunted to extinction. And one of the places where they've actually recovered in numbers is actually off the coast of California. They actually travel from the Arctic down through the coast of California, down further south. but there's a population that comes very regularly just off California, off Santa Barbara. Amazing. We actually were very lucky to see a lot of blue whales looking grey. You couldn't see them at that stage under the water because the water was quite rough, and we had some very rough times in the boat. Have I said I'm not very good on boats? Seasickness. I've got a very good, I know which tablets to take, and basically I sit on the top outside looking out on the ocean. I've got all the techniques to try and avoid it, but they were amazed that we kept going back to see more and more whales, and we actually got quite a few free trips for it. But you can see they look grey on the surface, and when we see them you can't get any idea of how big they are. They're huge, but you just cannot get an idea. You just see a tiny bit of them. And unfortunately, because I don't dive with them, we don't go in the water with them, that's all I've been able to see, except I have seen a blue whale breaching, which is very rare. And in fact, the person on the boat, the captain of the boat, said that, goodness, that's something that he's never seen before in all the years he's been watching. And this blue whale just was whizzing away from us and just decided to breach. Incredible. Then you got an idea of the size of it. So you get the impression that these are the bits that you see of the blue whale. They also had humpbacks there, and they didn't disappoint. They jumped out the water, they showed their flippers, they showed their tails. They're amazing. And again, we do not really know why they do this. It's possibly communication. It's suggested it's a way of getting rid of parasites from their skin. But a lot of the time you think they're just playing, they're just enjoying just being in the sea, and a lot of the time they are coming up to the surface and having a good look around and seeing what's going on. And we're very lucky in order to catch quite a few of these breaches as they come out of the water. I mean, the timing. I've got lots, by the way, I have got lots of photos where it's just a splash and nothing else. At the same time, you also saw loads of pelicans and sea lions, and there was lots of other wildlife there as well, but loads of blue whales. And then we were lucky enough to go to Alaska. Now, Alaska is it's an incredible place. We got there eventually, because quite a few planes later, arriving in a seaplane, just a 4-seater seaplane, of which when we flew over the island where we were staying, we actually saw bears on the coast, on the actual beach, but not on the beach where we were staying. This is the beach where we were staying, and we just had some tents in the trees behind. You ask about facilities, toilets, there wasn't any. That was very primitive. I won't go into details, I don't think, but it's an incredible place, absolutely beautiful. And when you looked out at night, you could not see any sign of humanity at all. There were no lights, nothing. And the stars you could see, it was amazing. I mean, I've never seen such clear skies and seen so many stars. You really do get an idea of what is up there. So Alaska, the reason we went out there was to see this. Humpbacks are mainly solitary, but they occasionally come together and do what's called bubble feeding. And this is part of the example that you can see here. As you can see, not far from this boat. It's part of Alaska that you've got the main part of Alaska. We were down in this sort of part they call, I think, the Panhandle, where all the archipelagos, there's loads of different islands there. So bubble feeding. We knew that was going on because we've seen it happen. So we were there with our boat. We could hear it because they put hydrophones down, and you could hear the whales communicating. One whale fires a line of bubbles going all the way around the school of fish, making the fish get together in a big lump. And then the other whales, and the first thing you see on the surface is a few little fish being forced to the surface. Then you see the bubbles, and then you see the whales. They just sort of rush up in front, take the gulps, and then it just seemed like chaos for a few seconds, and then they all relax, and then they start all over again. I cannot, I mean, you can see barnacles on the details on this. And that's how close. That is a picture taken from the other boat, from somebody else took it for us. And there's me sort of hanging on for dear life on the side of the boat, taking pictures as well. So that was my picture that I took. And as you can see how close they were, pure luck. It was just absolutely amazing. But these animals go together. They actually sort of hunt together, and this is a fantastic strategy because they all get a huge amount of fish. Humpbacks are really clever. They actually can change their feeding style as well. And there is a humpback that I read about, and I saw there was a program on the television about them. They actually decided that they were going to hunt and eat young salmon. And this was because they worked out that the salmon fisheries in Alaska would release the salmon fry, and then the whale would just come along and eat them all. Not very good for the fishery, so they tried to outwit the whale by taking the big containers where the fish were being raised, taking them further out to sea to release them at different times. The whale somehow worked it out and managed to get them each time. So they thought they'd release a few fish at a time. The whale outfoxed them by actually getting into the nets, into the tanks where the fish were kept, and all of a sudden just taking the gulp and then going off. The fishermen had to come up with another strategy. But there's lots of different ways the whales have actually sort of tried. And I think sperm whales often will take fish off lines, off these big fishing lines and things. Amazing creatures. Okay, oops, I've clicked in that's it. So we were very lucky and we saw lots of this bubble feeding. Incidentally, we were out there kayaking, but I think luckily for us, when we were in the kayaks, we didn't come close to this. We only saw this when we were out on the boats. We could have done, because we did see some of the whales really close to shore, close to where we were kayaking. And at one time, a great big huge Stella sea lion came close to our kayaks. And we were just we didn't feel threatened at all. It was just absolutely amazing. Okay. So whales come to the surface, and you can only see a very small part of the whale. Humpback whales are called that because they sort of have this humpback, which lots of the whales do when we're actually diving. And you can see in this one the spout, and that is unique to each species of whale. So hunters can actually tell which whale that they're actually going out to catch. But you can use them nowadays to identify the different types of whale. I'm not an expert, but we were with plenty of people who were. We counted at one point, there were up to 15 whales working together. And in Alaska, we also saw, as I say, the Stella sea lions. We saw the seals on the ice floes. We saw a glacier. And we were also very lucky. On the island we were on, the bears were at the river eating the salmon. And don't worry, they were very close to us, but they had plenty of food. They weren't interested in us at all. And there's a picture of the tent that we were in on the island. I keep pressing the wrong thing now. And there's my little boat. And I actually got a picture of a bear cub up a tree. How classic is that? It's not very good because the sun was coming at us. We were on the wrong side of the river. But because of the bears that were there, there was no way we could cross the river to go and get a better view. But there they are. That was just an amazing, amazing experience. We went twice to the Azores. We did again some research and found trips where they talk about whale watching. And we also, at this point, on our first visit, we saw loads of dolphins. People were really impressed when I showed them these pictures. And they said, you went in the water with them? And you thought, no, the water was so clear. that you could actually see them through the water. This was taken from the boat. And you could actually see quite far down into the water. We reckoned about 50 feet and more. You could actually see all the way down. And we know that because unfortunately, somebody dropped their camera and we saw it bounce and drop in the water. And you could see it for quite a way down as it went down into the Atlantic Ocean. But these are spotted dolphins in this one. Amazing little creatures. Okay. And the reason we went there as well for the whales, it was the sperm whales. And this is a big whaling community from when it was a whaling community. Sperm whales were taken easily again because they didn't go far from the shore. And there were people who were on land spotting the whales and sending the boats out to where they could see the whales. Sperm whales are amazing. They're, as I say, they're social animals, and they, or lots of them together, they're either in large group of males or they're the females and the youngsters. And one female usually stays with the youngsters on the surface while the others go down and feed, because obviously the little ones can't go deep enough to get the food. Amazing creatures. Again, as I said, this is a sperm whale, but you could be forgiven to thinking it's humpback as the other ones, but there's a slightly different fin to it. And they were also looked a lot more wrinkly, but they breached. And at one point we were actually surrounded by, we reckoned about 12 males who were just all spy hopping around us, looking at us. Now, the boats are not allowed to go too close to the animals. There's the regulations and they've got to stay away. No one tells the whales that, and they do come close to the boats and do come and investigate. There's one popping his head out so that it can see what's around. At this point, a mum and a baby came swimming towards us, and basically came to look at us, and the boat tried to come away, but every time it backed off, it ended up with the whales coming even closer. So the boat just stopped so that it couldn't cause any harm, and then the whales just came round, and they were looking at us. You could see that, you know, sort of looking. When you look in the eye of the whale, you know they're looking back at you and thinking. And I couldn't resist any more breaches. Okay. I like this one because you can see its little mouth. You can't quite see its teeth in this, but it gives you an idea of that sort of little mouth. But, well, little, these are the big, huge creatures. And again, you don't ever get sort of an idea of how big they actually are. This is another view of them. When you're out, you're looking for something called, well, they basically look like logs on the surface. It's logging. They're resting on the surface. And there was quite a few times when we say, whale, no, it's a log, or no, it's a log, no, it is a whale, because there, as you can see, it's very difficult to tell the difference. But it just shows we're in the middle of the Atlantic. We were very lucky with the weather. Really calm, and you can clearly see quite a distance. So in that situation, you can clearly see as soon as they breach the surface, and as soon as the spouts go up through from the water, you can clearly see from a distance. We saw other species. These are the short fin pilot whales, which I think Ben was saying before, we're called the cheetahs, which are really fat because they're really fast. We saw Risso's dolphins. These are born there. They look grey, dark grey when they're first born, and all this white is because they're seem to be quite aggressive to each other when they're sort of vying for attention or for mates or just playing or messing around. They do scrape each other. We saw common dolphin, large pods of common dolphin and small pods. We were lucky even to see beaked whales. This is a beaked whale. Now they're really very similar to each other, and we're not sure. We reckon we saw at least a Cuvier's beaked whale, but again, we can't really be totally sure. We saw dolphins, and they were doing their usual jumping out the water. That's another shot of a Risso's dolphin that you can actually see all the marks on its skin. These are the spotted dolphins again, mothers and babies. We saw lots of these on the first trip, and bottlenose dolphins. I've got lots again pictures of either the front part or the back part of the dolphin, lots of splashes where, you know, you probably hear in the background, I would have gone, oh bother, or some other such words. And I had to be careful because at the same time my friend was doing the video. So in her video you can hear, you know, sort of click from my camera, and sometimes, oh dear, I've missed that one. Some fantastic shots. We were so lucky, as I say, with the weather on the first trip, and we saw lots, big, huge pods. Okay, can't resist that. It's such a beautiful shot. And Risso's with the baby there. Okay, another spotted. And sometimes you get lucky. These are striped dolphins. We saw different sorts. We actually saw a blue whale on this trip as well, and we were so lucky of all the other things that we saw as well. Common dolphins, beautiful. What can you say from the dolphins? We also saw other seabirds. We saw the Corey's shearwaters, which we were very lucky. We actually went out at night just as they were flying in, and they make such amazing, strange noise. So there were other things as well. And the turtle. Okay, this is a turtle, one of the sea turtles. Now, unfortunately, the boat we were on were taking the turtles on board so that they could measure them and weigh them as part of a turtle project. These were, I think, leatherback turtles. And it was this turtle that was responsible for my worst bouts of seasickness, because I took my eyes off the horizon. I had to go and see this turtle. Absolutely fantastic. But anyway, I recovered, and it didn't put me off because I kept going back. And also some flying fish, which was very lucky. Trying to get a picture of flying fish was really difficult. I was so pleased I got that shot. So we were really lucky. We saw lots of things there. And I couldn't we've got lots of shots of the clear water. It was just amazing clear water. And then we decided to go off to New England. This is on the east coast of America. This is where we've actually adopted whales. We've got my whale, which, it's all right. My dog is under the table now, starting my vacuum cleaner off, because I've got a RoboVac under the table, and he does that to get attention. At New England, so my whale's Pepper and my friend's whale's Reflection, and we were actually lucky enough to see them when we were there. Again, we went from Boston, and we saw whales out from the coast at Boston, and then our main place, which was at Plymouth, where they've got the boat, the Mayflower, which is where the Whale and Dolphin Association headquarters are. We went out from there, and we were very lucky to see lots and lots of behaviour of humpback whales. We also went for a whole day and saw, at one point, we're all sitting there with our feet dangling in the water, and someone said, oh, look, there's a dolphin coming towards us. And someone said, no, it's not, it's a shark. Well, we got out of the water very quickly, but it was a hammerhead shark. Amazing. I didn't get any pictures because it was just so unexpected. But we also saw the sunfish, very strange looking fish. So we've got here the whale. Okay. Humpback whales are, you can see that the shading on its tail is quite unique to each whale. So they can take photos and identify, and they know the history of all these different whales. So that was quite amazing to actually see. Okay, lots of I like this one because you can actually see it's the fin, the white fin, and clearly see its nostrils. I was quite pleased with that one. And as you can see, the two holes showing the shape. And then, oh, the picture's disappeared. Baja, California. For a long time, we knew that to go and see the grey whales of Baja California was basically when we were working and being teachers, we couldn't get time off to go and see them, of course. So we decided that as soon as we retired, that's one of the first things that we were going to do. And luckily, February this year, before all hell broke loose, we basically managed to get there. And then, so first of all, we were off, we could see the humpback whales in the Sea of Cortez. We saw sea lions, and then we went off to Magdalena Bay to see the grey whales. The grey whales of that area have actually recovered really well, considering they were down and they were actually nearly taken to extinction. But they recovered really well. They were called the devilfish, and fishermen would keep away from them, totally keep away from them, until a few fishermen started to notice that the grey whales were actually coming towards their boats. They even allowed the fishermen to touch them. And in fact, they seemed to like it because they kept coming back for more. So, of course, this then sort of became a small business. It is still quite unspoilt in that area. Basically, it was hard to find somewhere to go and eat. All the restaurants and things, it's definitely not commercialized at all. Amazing place. But you could actually go out in a little boat and the whales would come to you. And you could get really close to them. You could actually touch them. My friends said, oh, wouldn't it be funny if the whale came underneath the boat and started rocking the boat? Remember, I'm not good in boats. I'm not a good swimmer. I'll go, no. Well, it did. This mother whale with its baby came to us and got underneath the boat and was rocking the boat. Amazing. But you didn't feel threatened. They were just amazing. So we got really good views of the grey whale. They're called the friendliest whale. I think that was a picture of the boat. I don't know why it's disappeared. It's not PowerPoint I'm using, so I think some of the pictures keep disappearing. This also on my hit list, my sort of list of things I've always wanted to see. I've always wanted to see a blue-footed booby, probably because it's got a silly name. And being a teacher, I know that things like that, when you say that to the kids, they always laugh and giggle. So I think I probably still got that sense of humour. But there's a blue-footed booby. Amazing. We saw turtles there. We saw the frigate bird. Okay. Which is amazing, something I've always wanted to see as well. Okay, and a complete desert. We drove through the desert for miles, this really straight road for miles and miles before we got from the highway to the Magdalena Bay. Totally unspoilt. We were warned that if you pass a petrol station to fill up, because basically it'd be a long time before you came across another one. It was amazing. But all the way through, they have put up lots of places for ospreys to nest, which I was really impressed. There was lots of ospreys nesting there on all these false nests, because there aren't many trees. You can see they're mainly cacti. And every now and again, you've got these wonderful palm trees. But amazing place, Baja California. It's a place that definitely is some unspoilt. The people there, really friendly. The police were really scary. We had a few places where we had to stop. The police actually stop you, but we were waved on, so we must have looked all right. Before I finish, I just want to say I've hinted about the whaling industry and how much that has unfortunately affected whales. But there's other reasons they're in trouble. You've got the amount of shipping that's out there and the noise that causes. You've got the fishing industry and the way they get caught up in the nets. These animals go for the food, an easy lunch. They're not stupid, they'll go and get them. And unfortunately, there's lots of tangling. And there's a lot of people, the Whale and Dolphin Association, for example, go out and rescue these animals. Pepper, my whale, she's been trapped in these things and been released quite a few times. Strandings, there's been a lot of strandings, and again, they're not really sure why. It could be because they've been disorientated because of noise. It could also be lots of other reasons. For example, plastic and pollution. We all know about that at the moment. And whales and dolphins are no different. They've been found to have contain loads of plastic inside them. They're also in trouble because the entertainment industry, although there are things that are improving with that. Incidentally, if you're really interested and want to know how they're trained, which is not nice at all, yeah, they might be well looked after. They might get the best conditions that is possible, but they don't live for very long. They're trained often by being told that, not being given their food. And this has led to at least one whale actually killing, I think it was 3 of the trainers, simply because he got fed up of not being able to eat. And this whale, they reckoned, had been psychologically damaged through all the years it had been kept in captivity. There's never been any other incidents where whales have harmed humans in the wild. Although I have recently read of a group of whales of about 3 orcas that have been messing around with some boats off Portugal. And that has not resulted in any harm, but people were really worried about these whales coming and knocking the boat and knocking the rudders. And then, of course, the whaling industry. Let me just go to my figures. The whaling industry is responsible for getting rid of about 1 million sperm whales, about 500,000 fin whales, about 350,000 blue whales, 250,000 humpbacks, and hundreds and thousands of others. They reckon there's only about 5 to 10% of whale populations actually around. At one point, the northern right whale, possibly only 300 individuals. And now you think about the size of these oceans, the size of the areas they live in. Sperm whales were the most valuable because of the organ that was very oily. But as the technology increased and as the whales that they hunted became extinct, they basically had to look for others, and they hunted any. Whaling declined because it was not as profitable, because basically they'd been hunting them to near extinction. And also the fact that lots of people started saying, hang on, this is really cruel. Whales there's no easy way to kill them. The whales take over half an hour to an hour to die in absolute agony. Now, remember, these are really clever sentient beings. So because of that, they started banning the hunting of certain whales. And in 1931, the bowhead whale, they stopped hunting. And they right up until 1986, when the International Whale Commission actually came up with a moratorium, which actually said no more hunting. You can only take whales for scientific study. A loophole that basically Iceland, Norway, and Japan carried on hunting whales. Incidentally, there are a lot of places in the world, including Britain, that actually hunted whales. We had a big whaling industry as well. So based in 1986, decline of whale hunting. And they actually, hopefully from nowadays, there's only the 3 that are still hunting: Iceland, Japan, and Norway. Okay. There's a bit of hope. Okay, so last little bit of hope. I show a picture of Britain. People don't really associate Britain with whales and dolphins. We know there are a few populations of dolphins, bottlenose dolphins around that stay here. But we're also now finding more and more whales that are coming to our shores. They were definitely hunted because of the whaling industry, but they're now spreading out more and increasing, and we're finding more. For example, which was absolutely amazing, I was so shocked. There was a whale, humpback whale, spotted a couple of years ago, 9th of June, a couple of years ago, humpback whale off the coast of Liverpool, for goodness sake. So they are coming back to our shores. Also, in 2019, Iceland didn't hunt any whales, which is absolutely amazing. Mainly because the public appetite for whale meat is actually fading, so there's no market for it. And also because in other countries there's less need, they can't export it. So at the moment, and it is still the last whaling company have decided they're not hunting, and they probably, hopefully, won't start ever again. They're also finding, of course, the whale watching industry is a lot more lucrative, and a lot have switched to whale watching. And so that, again, is helping a huge amount. So that's a really positive thing. On the negative side, Norway is not giving up, and nor is Japan. Although, again, in Japan, the amount of people eating whale meat is actually on the decline, and the people wanting to watch them is actually on the increase. So again, we could be seeing things turning there. Norway, I really don't know what's happening there. But anyway, bit of hope. And then, of course, there's all the publicity that's come out with things like the Blue Planet. They're just amazing that we've all heard about the problems to do with plastic and the problems to do with the planet, and that has increased people's awareness, and so hopefully things will be happening much better. So I'm being distracted by my dog again. Okay. Hopefully some of you might have seen the programme about the beluga whales in captivity. For example, very recently, France has said no more whales in captivity. Out of all the animals that have been kept in captivity, whales and dolphins really don't flourish at all. In fact, some other species like sharks don't do very well either, but that's a different story. Whales and dolphins do not seem to flourish at all in captivity, no matter how well they're looked after. And these two whales, Little White and Little Grey, were living in an aquarium in Japan, and they actually managed to get them and take them and release them into a huge area. They can't be released into the wild because they wouldn't survive, but they've now got a huge area, a coastal sanctuary on one of the islands, in Iceland, where they've been released, a huge area. And hopefully more will follow, because there are still lots in captivity. But that's a bit of hope there. And hopefully a lot of you might have seen that on the television. Incidentally, did I say if you want to know about the humpbacks, about the orcas in captivity, if you go on YouTube and look for the film to do with blackfish, because they're often called blackfish, that can tell you a lot of insight into the way they're kept. It's not an easy watch, but it is something that perhaps people can see. So I'm not sure whether this is pepper or reflection, but we know we saw our whale out in New England, so I thought I would finish with that one, except that it's not glamorous looking at whales and dolphins. This is the gear that we had to wear in Newfoundland. Can I just say that's all padding? Well, mostly. Okay. You can tell how long ago it is, because no, I don't look that much different, do I? But it was just amazing. That's me on one of the boats. No, I am not moving. I don't care how cold or wet it is. I am not moving indoors, because I am not going to get seasick like everyone else is. And actually they're all in, but anyway, that's a different story. That's our gear for Alaska, for going in the kayak. As you can see, lots of waterproofs and that funny skirt that we had to go in the kayak. That was an amazing holiday. And my whale watching hat, which instead I had to change recently, unfortunately. But it's still, I found another lucky hat, that one. And that's the last one, just in February. Just absolutely amazing, beautiful place, Baja, California. Okay, and of course we had to sample. That's not a margarita, that's a very strange drink actually, but we had to sample obviously the local things as well. I hope that's okay. I've got thousands and thousands of photos. It was very difficult to choose which ones, and I'm sorry that 2 of them didn't turn up. That was one of the ones with the little boat as well, which is a shame. You could have seen.
No, thank you, Linda. That was a wonderful fashion tour there at the end. Very stylish. No,
Thank
no,
you.
thank you very much. That was really fascinating, and what an absolutely astounding collection of photographs. You know, especially many of those before the age of digital cameras. Really quite impressive to have obtained so many incredible
Hundreds of
images.
films.
Yeah, no, it's really something
Yeah.
amazing. Okay, well, it's been really interesting. Let's take a little break just for a few minutes, and then I'll invite you all to come back, and we can do a quick question and answer session, if that's right with you, Linda.
Yep. Yeah.
Yep. If you're
Yeah.
watching on YouTube, there's a little comment section down in the box if you want to leave any questions you have there, and I'll pick them up for you. But anyone that's still here in Zoom, I invite you to come back in, let's say, 5 minutes time, at 25 to 9, and we'll have a short discussion. So thank you, Linda, and
Okay.
see you all in 5 minutes.
Better picture.
Very good. Shall I leave
Okay. Is that all right?
Linda?
Yeah.
You have to tell me which tablets you take, because I could do with them.
It's Sturgeon. Sturgeon.
Sickness.
Sturgeon or Sturgeon.
Sturgeon. I'm
So
terrible.
like that. I'm never good at pronouncing them. So when I go into Boots, it's just a case of Sturgeon, and they always know which one's Sturgeon. They're really good. Or they seem to be anyway.
Yeah. Do you have the bands on your wrist as well?
No, not that. No, it's just been that, and just sitting and just looking at the horizon. Yeah. And then, of course, I mean, some of the times, like in the Azores, we were just standing there waiting in the full heat for the whales to come back. I never said that, you know, they can be underwater for about 40 minutes and you're waiting for them to come back. And so in the full heat, that's when the camera, basically my friend was taking off one of the layers, and the camera just bounced onto the deck and bounced into the water. We couldn't do anything about it, and we saw it disappearing down. The insurance company did ask if she managed to get it back. But no, it's just amazing. So I've been lucky, really. It was only the incidents with the turtles, and then there was a couple of times when I felt in New England it got a bit rough. But I was back in the afternoon on the next trip. I hope the dog he wants to go out now.
No, don't worry, I enjoyed his contributions.
What you can't see is that he's at my side, nibbling and nudging with his nose. So,
no, it's a level of professional to keep going through all of that. I'm very impressed.
I suppose it's the teacher bit. You get used to sort of ignoring what's going on around. Yeah. But they are incredible creatures.
Yeah, they are. I was lucky enough to see some humpbacks myself on the Alaskan coast. Back in, it must have been 2013. Yeah, they had a family. Well, it was a pod of sorts, as you say, a gathering of some kind. We had 2 adults and a calf pass right under our boat, almost at the surface, and just disappear, flukes up and gone.
Yeah,
it's a wonderful experience. Seems ever so far ago now.
I never taught. Well, I mean, as you can tell, if I was using non-digital cameras, you can tell how long ago the Newfoundland was. I didn't bother. I was going to ask my friend to put dates on it, but I thought, no, it'll scare me. But it never ceased to amaze. And when we saw them again, just a few months ago in February, seeing the humpbacks again, we were just as excited as the first time we ever saw them. And as I say, the grey whales. If ever get the chance to go there, Magdalena Bay, it's just amazing. It wasn't quite what we expected, but going out in a little boat, there's just nothing there in this little place, and you just go out on the boat. There's just they're all that organised, but it's beautiful. It's the mangrove swamps, so you see all sorts of other birds, and and it was just.
Mm.
The tour guide apologized for they said it's quite a basic place you're going to be staying in, and we're going, we don't care, but it was absolutely lovely. But we said, do you do tea? And he said, well, we could cook something for you, because there was just nowhere around to go.
Yeah,
it was beautiful.
Camping stove next time, a frying pan.
Yeah, but this was a really lovely place. Yeah.
Wonderful.
But,
to add that to the list.
Yeah. And driving around, just driving through the desert. It was amazing.
Right, okay. Welcome back, everyone. Hope everyone's got a cuppa in their hand. Let's do some questions. I think there's still a couple of people to come back, but as they arrive, we can get going. So a question from me first, Linda. Obviously, you've had the fortune of seeing so many wonderful species. Is there anything left on your bucket list? Or, if you had to pick one species that you'd most like to see with your own eyes, what would it be and why?
Orcas, because they are just so clever, and their behavior is just amazing. And they're so big, and just everything about them, really. If it had been just a few months ago, it'd been the grey whales, and perhaps the grey whales off South Africa. But yeah, somewhere to see orcas, I think.
Up to Scotland then?
Well, yeah. We did go to Scotland, but we didn't go as far north to see the orcas. We saw the bottlenose dolphins that were up just off the coast, up by Edinburgh. And that was quite amazing. You can just stand on the land and see them, and they're really close. It's very good.
Wow.
Orcas.
The towering fins.
Orcas and the northern lights, I think. I don't know.
Yeah, good combination. Alan, I've just seen you unmuted. Is there a question from you?
Well, I'm recalling an interesting incident that happened when I was in university in my first year. I had my professional examination oral at the end of the year, and the professor said to me, I understand you keep cold water fish as a hobby. And I said, yes. He said, well, could you tell me about whales? How are they adapted to diving into deep water? And I said, I did wonder what that had to do with my cold water marine fish, but I wasn't able to answer his question. But I can answer it now. If you want to know how they're adapted, they're able to store a lot of oxygen in their blood and their muscles.
Yeah.
And so apparently they have reinforced chambers, the airways are reinforced so they don't collapse under the pressure of the water. And I think their middle ears are able to, the blood vessels in the middle ear are able to swell up and fill the space, so that there's no space in the middle ear, and the eustachian tubes and so on that we have as well, going from the ear to the throat. So that's apparently how they are adapted, but I didn't know it in those days.
I know, it's amazing that they can actually sperm whales withstand such pressure. It's quite amazing. And they haven't really got a lot of footage or a lot of information about how they actually hunt and how they use the clicks, because of course, down in the depths they can't actually see, but they actually think they use a lot of their eyesight as well as the clicks and the echolocation, which is quite amazing. But it's quite a mystery of what they can actually do, and they do know they take those huge squid that are down there.
They don't like
any other questions? Oh, sorry.
They don't have an external air tank, and therefore breathing air as they go down. They don't actually breathe at all, apparently.
No.
Their breaths. And considering that's for half an hour to an hour or something like that.
Yeah. They reckon beyond an hour, just over an hour, they can hold their breaths. Yeah.
That's impressive free diving.
Yeah. It's also impressive when you're waiting on the surface for them to come back up. You're thinking, oh, gotta be now. And you're baking under the sun. And you say, come on, you've got to come up now on Monday. Oh, it's just amazing when they eventually come back up. Yeah, very impressive.
Are there any whales being kept in British zoos now?
No.
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 Mm.
No, they stopped, thank goodness. Whales and dolphins, they stopped quite a few years ago now.
Yeah. I remember seeing them in Whipsnade Zoo. I don't know, the black and white ones.
The orcas, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, amazing. Apparently, which I didn't realise, but when I was growing up, the local swimming baths, they actually had dolphins visited there. I mean, they obviously brought how they did it. I have no idea, but they were actually there and on show and performing in a swimming pool, just in an ordinary size swimming pool. You know, so that's when I was growing up. But I didn't see that at all. I didn't notice that one because I didn't go near the swimming pools very much. But yeah, glad that stopped. But there's still quite a few places around the world where they're kept.
If you had to give advice to the people sitting at home like me that are thinking, what can we each do as individuals for whales and dolphins around the world? Is there anything that comes to mind from conversations you've had over the years?
Yeah, I mean, join organisations like the Whale and Dolphin Association, because they obviously fund sort of being able to go out and rescue animals, and they do a lot of research, and they do a lot. Greenpeace obviously over the years have done a lot to help stop whaling. They've actually gone out in boats and risked their lives, these people, to actually stop the big factory ships, which, I mean, originally when they whaled, they used little boats, but as of course technology got better and the huge factory ships could actually go out into the middle of the oceans and take them, Greenpeace sent out ships to actually try and stop that. So things like that, and also just all the keeping clean, trying to stop all this use of plastics, so that they stop getting into the seas, and that just doesn't just help whales and dolphins. Of course, that helps lots of things. So it's things like that. Yep.
Really helpful.
Wasn't it on Autumn Watch? I'm trying to think where I heard about a group of, I'm pretty sure they were whales, not dolphins, or an unusual dolphin maybe, that got into one of the sea locks in Scotland.
Yeah.
Didn't know that some then they were there for a certain length of time, and then some of them disappeared, but did one or two breach? I can't quite remember.
Yeah, I can't remember what sort they were now. Yeah, there were whales up there. A pod of whales had gone into.
Is there a bottlenose whale? No.
What? Sorry.
Not a bottlenose whale.
Yes, bottlenose whale.
Yes, I know. I've heard of bottlenose dolphins, but never heard of bottlenose whales. That's right. Yes.
Yeah. Well, they're a dolphin as well, even though they're called a whale, but they're the bottlenose.
Right, I see, right.
And they actually sort of managed to get in. They don't know why they went in. It's not usual, but they stayed there for a while. They were trying to get them out. Were they the same ones they were trying to get out because they were doing some military work in the area? So they're going to make lots of noise, and they wanted to try and get the whales out.
Might have something to do with why they were there, didn't they?
Yeah. There's still a lot of the ones that sort of make mistakes and come up the estuaries and come into the rivers are often because they're confused because of all the noise that's out there. Yeah,
they get one going up the Thames occasionally, don't they?
Yeah.
Maybe they're looking for their cousin, the monster. Sorry, that's a joke.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions for Linda from anyone before we bring this interesting evening to a close? No? Okie dokie. Well, Linda, thank you so much. It's been absolutely terrifically interesting.
Okay, thank you.
As I'm sure everyone will agree. And yeah, what a nice note for this somewhat bleak November to be thinking about the wonderful animals out there around the world.
Yeah. And there is a lot of hope. There is a lot that are increasing, and yeah, there's loads of information. I can go on for a bit longer if you want.
We'll bring you back next year, don't worry, for the second round. Okay then, so we've got the December meeting coming up. Obviously, in a normal world, we'd normally like to do our 6-minute sessions where we invite members. But this year, it's still in this digital world, though hopefully not for long, with a vaccine potentially on the horizon to the situation. We'll be having our very own Alan Stevens, who's going to be talking about going viral, I think is the title, right, Alan?
It'll do, yeah.
Yeah, it'll do.
Point of view.
Yeah. So we'll be covering the ins and outs of viruses and some of Alan's first-hand experience with disease in the veterinary world. So it's set to be a topical and enjoyable one to bring in the festive season.
Yes.
Yes.
Just remind where we are.
Not very festive.
Well, by then the vaccine and everything, so
Yeah. Let's make it as festive as a viral talk for me.
By then.
Yeah, bring your mince pies and your wine
with
or whatever.
sherry or whatever.
Or sherry, yes.
Exactly right. And yeah,
or the fine gin or whatever it was.
And yeah, just as a final note, that our good friend John Mackay has produced a short documentary on the Bratch pumping station, which is available to purchase from him. Those of you that are members will have an email, and you can find his address in there. Probably worth a look as a nice little gift for the holiday season that is just around the corner. So I shall wish you all a lovely few weeks and stay safe, everyone. And I look forward to seeing your faces all again in the December meeting 4 weeks from now. Okay.
Thank you for listening and putting up with me.
Thank you very much again, Linda.
Thank
you.
Okay, everyone. Thanks very much for coming. See you next time.